Hi, my name is Jasmine Cruz,
And I'm Maya Polanco.
and the book that we're presenting is Another Country, pages 145 to 377. Some background information about James Baldwin is that he was born on August 2nd, 1924, and he grew up in Harlem in New York City, and that during his teenage years, he was a preacher at a Pentecostal church. And due to racism and homophobia that he faced in America, he moved to Paris in 1948. However, he returned to America in 1957 and became a big part of the civil rights movement.
A fun fact we found about him was that Buford Delaney, a Harlem Renaissance painter, was James Baldwin's mentor. They met when James Baldwin was 15, and he was a huge inspiration for him as a Black artist. The excerpt of interest is on page 198, and we thought it was interesting because it was about Eric exploring his sexuality and discovering more about it at a really young age, and sort of coming to the realization that in order to be accepted by society, he would have to hide it. And we thought it was interesting to compare it to this interview that James Baldwin did about love and sexuality and his thoughts on it, where he basically was saying that loving someone, whoever you love, and your sexuality is a very big part of your identity, and essentially that you'd be living a lie if you were to just try to hide it or lie about that. And we thought it was interesting to sort of contrast that to what his characters do throughout his novels.
Yeah, so we thought it was really also interesting to compare their ages, and we think that it has a lot to do on the reason that they approach their sexuality in that way, like how Eric approaches it since he's a lot younger, and it's a lot more scary and intimidating for him and a lot newer, to come to this realization, and he doesn't, he's scared of the disapproval of his family and the world. And on the other hand, James Baldwin in this interview, he's more accepting on who he is and who he loves. And I think that really just shows the growth and um yeah. And then our first discussion question is on page 205, and it says that Leroy looked briefly over at Eric and smiled. You a nice boy, Eric, but you don't know the score. Your daddy owns half the folks in this town. Ain't but so much they can do to you, but what they can do to me. And he spread his hands wide. And then our question is based on this passage and what we know about Leroy and Eric, how do their outlooks on life differ from each other and what factors contributed to those differences?
So, our second discussion question is based on a passage from page 316, and it says, he scarcely knew what his novel was about any longer, or why he had ever wished to write it, but he could not let it go. He could not let it go, nor could he close with it, for the price of that embrace was the loss of Ida's, or so he feared. And so, our question is, what does the novel that Vivaldo is writing throughout the book represent for him and his relationship with Ida?
Our third discussion question is on page 260, where Eric, Ida, and Vivaldo are discussing why the Michael and Paul had been involved in earlier the day had started. And our question is, how does race play a part in their reactions to the fight and Eric's approach to telling Ida and Vivaldo about it? And this is our works cited, and thank you.
Thank you.